So everyone please settle down and compose yourselves. And sit up well, good straight back, body and mind alert. And you close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, you leave behind all that you've been doing and thinking and worrying about. You put everything of your past down and you leave it. And you determine now to try and, at least while we're together this evening, to keep your attention, to keep your mind here and now. And cameras on, please, everyone, so I can keep my beady eye on you. So sit up well and remember to be still, to remain absolutely still. And we'll commence by bringing to mind the Buddha, reminding ourselves of our great teacher and inspiration, recollecting his perfect mind, a mind that was absolutely clear of any kind of corruption or defilement, and even more than that, far away from anything of that kind. His was a mind, too, of infinite compassion. A truly extraordinary and wonderful being, perfect in knowledge and conduct. Now, when you happen to think of the Buddha, or to see an image of the Buddha, or even just to have a glimpse of something associated with the Buddha, be inspired to do what you can to cleanse your mind too of all greed, hatred, and delusion. And understand that to develop your mind in this way is to do yourselves an enormous favor, a great kindness. And be reminded that to care for yourself in this way and to contribute to the peace and happiness of the world we live in is an extraordinary expression of loving kindness. Remember to be kind, kind to yourself, kind to others, caring of yourself and caring of others. To be glad at the good things you do and appreciative of the good in others. And to be accepting of things, so much that we can do little or nothing about. Now, what we can't do much about is the fact that we are all of us getting older. We can't stop that. We can manage it, but we can't prevent it. And we're all liable to be unwell. In fact, it may be that we're never ever in perfect health. Again, we can manage things. And then, of course, whatever we do, and however we manage our lives, we're all dying. we're going to die, every one of us. These three, known as the divine messengers, we must pay attention to and let them wake us up a bit. Let them add a little intensity to our practice, to our search for understanding and peace. Now, what we can do quite a lot about is the state of our mind. And that's what we're going to do now this evening. To spend some time training and developing our minds. So make sure that your posture is an appropriate one, that you're sitting up well, and remember, you're to remain quite still, no fidgeting. And then gather and concentrate your mind and become mindful and aware of just what you're doing. And what are you doing? You're sitting and you're breathing. And it may be that you're also thinking or dreaming or wondering what's going to happen. But try and narrow it down to just sitting and breathing. Now pay attention to just how you perceive the breath. Where do you feel the breath? Now, wherever that may be for you, gather and concentrate your mind and be mindful and aware of breathing in and breathing out. And just try to keep your attention there. Mindful of each in-breath, each out-breath. Now remember, if you catch your mind trying to wander, don't let it. Concentrate a little bit harder. Stay with the breath. But then if you notice that you're already dreaming or thinking or listening to something, just note that, what you're doing. See it for yourself. And let it go. And find the breath again. And try again to keep your mind there, following each in-breath, each out-breath. Whatever happens, stay still, quite still. So you've been, all of you, sitting very well. Please keep that up. Stay just as you are, perfectly still, perfectly alert. But in the next few minutes while I'm talking, change your practice a little and just listen. Practice the art of listening. Now stay still, please. This isn't a signal to start squirming about. So I believe that some of you probably have, as I have, been aware of that group of monks in America who've just completed a very long and very arduous walk for peace. It was a tremendous reception they had as they arrived in Washington. Thousands of people. And even along the way, as people came out to see them, they were obviously very emotional and very touched by what those monks were doing and had done. And at first it seemed rather curious that people would be reacting in such ways, so emotional. And then I thought about it. And it seemed to me that what has touched people especially has been the faith of those monks. And what, if I look around, I see lacking these days is faith. And I don't mean particularly faith in anything, any particular thing, but just that faith and confidence that people at one time seem to have more of in themselves and in the purpose of their life. Those monks clearly had a purpose, and they clearly were confident of what they were doing. And when they spoke about their belief that what they were doing could change the world. And all they were doing really was walking. But they were walking with that purpose. And when they had the chance to speak, they spoke about mindfulness, and they spoke about loving kindness, and especially they spoke about peace. Now you may, some of you, be surprised at me talking about faith, because generally speaking, we understand Buddhism as not being a faith-based religion or practice. And that is perfectly true. And there is usually a reluctance to translate the term saddha as faith. More usually, it gets translated as confidence or commitment or something of that nature. Certainly, if we use the word faith, we don't mean an emotion. And we certainly don't mean a blind belief. Faith in Buddhism has to be accompanied with wisdom, with understanding. And those monks clearly understood that what they were doing, their practice, makes changes. The practice you've been doing this evening will change you. Essentially, it will change your mind. And that's what we need to do. Because when we look into our minds, when we study our minds, which of course we do with our meditation practice, we discover that our minds are certainly not peaceful. And all too often, thoughts and feelings arise in our minds, and we will see this as we become more aware, that are not wholesome, not skillful, not conducive to peace. And we will begin to understand that peace, our peace, the peace in our society, the peace in the world, depends on a change of attitude, changes in the minds of individuals. Now, as most of you know, Buddhism speaks of karma. It's a term that I keep on telling you here is often misunderstood. It's what you do. And especially the effect of what you do that depends on the intention with which you act. And what we do, of course, affects us, and it will affect people around us. We need to pay attention to this. It's not just what we say and do, but also what we think, what occupies our minds, that we should be concerned about. To create for ourselves and for those around us a peaceful world, we need to change our minds. Essentially, our minds are sullied by greed, hatred, and delusion. Variations on those basic themes. Of course, you may say that you don't hate anyone or anything, but almost certainly you don't like certain people or certain things, even if you're not what we might call a hate type. Still, aversion, and sometimes anger or irritation, almost certainly, I should think, occupies your mind. And the same with greed, desire, wanting. And behind it all, the sense of self, of me and mine, of ego, and of wanting to support and perpetuate that sense of self. We can't help it. This isn't to be critical of you or anyone. This is the way we are. This is, unfortunately, how we are. But we can change this. And we change it by developing our minds and changing our minds. Changing the way that we think, changing our attitudes. Not through an act of will, but rather by beginning to understand ourselves, to understand the nature of ourselves and our world. Now, when you've been sitting this evening, in all probability, your minds have wandered. And I've noticed that some of you have been uncomfortable. And this is, again, quite normal. But then I've told you to not respond to your discomfort, but to remain still. When you remain still, when you don't respond to the desire to move, you notice, you observe that movement of your mind. And this is crucial. It helps you to understand yourself. And furthermore, if you can, if you're uncomfortable, just pay attention to those feelings that you will perhaps label as pain or discomfort. You will notice that they don't stay still. They move. They expand a little, contract a little, shift a little. This is their nature. This is the nature of everything. Change, impermanence. This is part of the learning process, part of discovering just your nature, the way things are. And it's that understanding that eventually brings about the changes. Of course, being mindful like that, being able to observe, will help you too, especially if you are suffering from pain, real pain. On that walk, 2 of the monks were injured. One of them ended up losing his leg. When he spoke about it in Washington, sitting in his wheelchair, he affirmed how practicing mindfulness meditation had helped him deal with that when he thought he was going to die, when he was in pain. And so it is, because we begin to see the nature of things. Understanding is born, and with understanding, confidence and purpose. We have a purpose. It's not one that we're born with, but it's one we discover. And our purpose is to understand and to free ourselves from our ignorance and our suffering. So contemplate that. Be confident of yourself. Be confident of what you're doing. But make sure that that confidence comes with knowledge, with understanding. And let there be in your minds wisdom and confidence. And that's enough from me for tonight. So we'll sit just for another moment or two, and during these closing moments, please hold in your mind loving kindness. Loving kindness for yourself, loving kindness for all beings everywhere. May you and all beings be well and happy. May you and all beings be free from all suffering. May you and all beings realize for yourselves the secure peace of Nibbana. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. So thank you all very much for coming. Very good to see you all. I hope you have a good week, and we'll meet again.